I want to say that I'm an enormous fan of Paula Shugart's and the Miss Universe organization and how philanthropic your tentacles are and what you achieve. And I know, Cheslie, that you do so much to help incarcerated women. And I just want to tip my hat to you because you're an amazing girl. So it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, thank you so much, Francine. And right back at you. It's wonderful hearing about the work that you've done and the amount of people that you've touched, because we all really need help right now. And it's nice that we have people who see the need for help and answer the call. So obviously, you've got a very successful career. You had a very successful career, and then you totally switched into philanthropic work. So how did you go from, being a producer, having your career in Hollywood, to starting a trade initiative?
The angels knock on your tap on your shoulder. You really have to listen to them, and you go places that you don't expect to go. So I had no idea that 11 years ago I would start a business in Rwanda, which, is in the heart of Africa, but I wasn't really 100% sure exactly where in Africa it was. But when I found out about the Rwandan genocide, I was so taken with the fact that 1 million people had been murdered in 100 days, and 70% of the women had been raped and had developed HIV. So I thought, oh my God, what can I do? And to me, the greatest philanthropy is a job, not a handout. And I believe so strongly the talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't. So I've always been good with jewelry.
Beautiful
I
jewelry.
always had an eye for jewelry, and I said, well, the women are so talented with their hands. Why don't I start a trade initiative in Rwanda? And people said, you're leaving show business? You're leaving Hollywood? And I said, yeah. And I got the call. And I was really scared the first time I went there. And actually, I went with Miss Universe and Miss USA. We went to Rwanda. It was an amazing trip. What?
Do you remember which year that was? Like which title holders?
I think it was about 2010.
Was it Rima Fakih?
Yes, it was Rima, and it was Rima. Oh my God, you should see Rima. When we went to, we visited the women that had been working for me, and we went to visit their homes. And there's great footage of Rima trying to make a bracelet or connecting with the women, and she was crying and she was so moved by them. And it was such an amazing connection. It was amazing moments we had together. But I remember when I arrived in Rwanda for the first time, thinking to myself, oh, they say Africa is so great and it changes your life, but that won't ever happen to me. And of course, when I arrived there, the minute I landed, it was like this giant switch in my head went off, and I fell in love with Africa, and I fell in love with the women in Africa, and I couldn't believe how lucky I was to be there. So it was, it's true though, things happen in life, and you have to kind of, they happen quickly and they leave even quicker. So you really have to take advantage of them when it happens. And so I got this idea, and my husband and other people thought, well, it's a little crazy starting a business in Rwanda and jewelry. And then I found myself with FedEx sending beads, and the women were doing all this crochet work because they were so good with their hands. And I saw the women transform, and they were making 15 times the average wage. They were safer. They were working around a table. They had a place to bring their problems. Their health got better. Their HIV improved. And I saw this transformation in front of my eyes. And I said, this is really incredible. It's incredible that that if you allow people to show you their talent, because talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't. And when you let them show you their talent, they soar. And I really saw these women transform in front of my eyes, and it was very exciting.
That's awesome. Now you said something really cool. You said that most people say that when you come and visit Africa, that their lives are changed. And you said that you didn't think that was going to happen, and then it did. How do you think it changed your life, visiting and seeing the women and the people who live there?
you know, it profoundly changed my life because these women survived unspeakable things, but yet they work with each other, they move past it, they care about their kids. And yet, if you're in New York and someone doesn't get a good seat or they feel slighted, you would think that their lives, you know, fell apart. So it just keeps your head screwed on.
Mm-hmm. Right. Gives you a sense of reality and what reality looks like for other people.
Yeah, and it keeps you straight.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And grounded. So eventually you moved your work, right, from Rwanda to back to the United States.
Well, I didn't move it that quickly because I was on the ground in Rwanda for 10 years doing my jewelry project and, you know, Same Sky Jewelry. But I think it's important to say that I realized that I wanted to do more training and education in America. So I did business training for the women in Rwanda to run their own businesses. And they have a successful business now making baskets and bags, and they don't need me anymore. And they don't need FedEx anymore. They have their own PO orders. They have their own union bank, and they all work together. So it's mission accomplished. But what happened about 7 years ago, I started working with formerly incarcerated women, women who had just gotten out of Hudson County Jail. And I thought to myself, you know, America's the largest incarcerator in the world, you know, where 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's incarcerated population. And women are the fastest rising segment of the prison population. And I felt, what if those women made jewelry? So we went to Jersey City and we started working at a transit, it's called a transitional house. And we started making jewelry like that with the women. And the women took care of the beads and they counted every bead. And again, it was working with their hands and also the connection between their hands and their heart, and feeling the power of the circle of women being together and feeling that this is a safe place to bring my problems. And this is a safe place that I can share what's on my mind. And maybe I can dream again. And maybe I can go back to school. And maybe I can open an art gallery. And maybe I could have a catering business. Anyway, the point is that I saw the same thing in Rwanda. I saw the same thing with the formerly incarcerated women. And I'm very proud to say after 7 years, we worked with 200 women and not one of them went back to prison in a population where more than 75% go back within the first 2 years. So it really was a success. Mm-hmm. But from there, I rolled it out and started working with women who live in homeless shelters. I mean, my passion is letting them lift themselves out of poverty through training and education. That's my passion. So we started working in the Women in Need homeless shelter, where last year we trained 100 women, and the program was so successful, Google and Bank of America duplicated it in Brooklyn. And 40% of the women got jobs and got out of the homeless shelter. And it's an amazing story because you have to come to one of the graduations at the homeless shelter. May I invite you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I would love to.
Normally we have one every 6 weeks, and I'd love you to come because it's really an amazing experience, the pride. And for these women to get these graduate certificates with their children sitting right next to them. And it's just an incredible moment. So I'd love to share that with you.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to, especially since, you know, I think, like you said, you know, working with people who have been incarcerated is a passion of mine, and the problems that they have are problems that I want to help with. And I think it has been hard hearing about the acute effects of COVID-19 and how they're experiencing them even behind bars, where it's hard to social distance yourself. and where it's hard to get the resources that we have, even outside of prisons and jails across the country. So I would love to. I think that'd be a really special event. So, recently your foundation, in light of everything that's happened, your foundation pivoted to being more focused on food security. Why did you make that decision to focus more on food?
I'm sitting here and I'm feeling so helpless, and I'm comfortable with my husband in our apartment and we can get whatever we want delivered. But I'm looking at the food lines in the country, and I'm looking at the epicenter, which is in Queens, where almost 50,000 people have tested positive for the virus. And Queens is like the heart and soul of New York. It's where the first responders are and the healthcare workers. And it was a shock. And it's sort of the way that they live, that they're multicultural and they live in very confined, sort of on top of each other, very congested ways. And so many of them got sick and died and have lost their jobs. And I was so moved by them and so upset that we decided that what could we do to help someone now? It's not training and education when their children can't have food. And the need is so great. I can't even tell you. A third of the food pantries closed because they were operated by elderly people that volunteered. The need is 3 times what it was. And they used to get so much food from hotels and from restaurants, and the hotels and restaurants are closed. So the food pantries don't have the right food. So I went to the food bank for New York City, which is a city agency, and I said, can you help the people in Queens in a more profound way with like pop-up pantries and food trucks, and what can you do? And they said they could. So I donated 500,000 meals, and I felt so happy and felt so good that I wasn't sitting here not doing anything. And I'm about to donate another 500,000 because I know it may be a drop in the bucket and the needs are so great, but food insecurity is so frightening to me. And the fact that it's happening all over the country is really something we all have to think about.
Exactly. Well, especially for kids who are experiencing food insecurity, who can't go to school like they normally do and get their meals. But I'm glad to hear that you're doing this program. I'm glad to hear that there are some schools that are still offering meals and that all of us are working together.
Schools offering meals, but it doesn't mean the kids and their parents can get there. There are still obstacles in their way. So this is another thing they can get. So it just made me feel so good. And we all feel so powerless to do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I think people forget that every little bit counts, and that if you donate 5 meals or 500,000, it's still going to help somebody, and we still need you to give that.
Yeah, I think whether it's $5 or it doesn't matter what it is. It's just the act of doing it. And the Food Bank of New York is a great organization, but Feeding America is also a great organization. I did a lot of research on who has the bandwidth and who has the depth to go into these communities that need it. And those 2 organizations really were the ones that I thought were the best.
So how do you think that people can help? What do you think would be the most effective way for them to help? Would it be by supporting these organizations?
I think supporting these organizations, I think it's harder to volunteer your time if you're not, comfortable going out right now, but support these organizations. They have the National Guard helping them, and they're able to dispense a lot of food.
Excellent. So after the pandemic begins to turn a corner and get better, how do you think we'll continue to feel its effects, especially women and children? How will women and children especially feel the effects?
After Katrina, after Hurricane Sandy, it's not going to end so quickly. I wish I could say it will. There's no magic bullet. These effects are going to take a very long time. you know, the women and children are going to be affected. So we have to keep them in our prayers and help them in any way that we can, because it's not going to end that quickly. So it's a problem.
It is. It is. Well, and I'm glad to hear that you've been such a huge help and really recognized new problems that need help, rather than, you know, just pushing the programs that you already have. You've continued to expand, and we appreciate that, and the community appreciates it. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for spreading this message, for giving us your time.
Thank you. And I hope everyone goes to the Francine, the FAL website, the Francine Lefrak Foundation website, and Same Sky, and look at the jewelry. And, you know, I hope everyone, you know, all donates to the food bank.
I hope that people will just continue giving back and continue heeding the advice from the organizations that are giving it. So thank you so much, Francine.
Thank you.